but the thing that catches my eye the most is a joke about a pooper scooper. I'm going to let that hang in the air for a minute. I'm going to let you really absorb it, and then I'm going to say it again. Pooper scooper. Like something along the lines of like, oh, I wouldn't come out there without a pooper scooper. And I'm like, I'm not saying that, no. So I'm like, let's change it. So I'm like, did Vince write this? We're like, we don't know who wrote it. So
probably Vince.
All right, so now here's how the creative process works in WWE. Doesn't really make sense. He's going to fall in love with it. And then he's going to be like, oh, you got to say the pooper scooper line. It's such good shit. So we're like, okay, hurry up and...
And he is right. He is so right. If Vince McMahon, even though I'm pretty sure he wrote that promo, would have seen that line before he saw, the suggested promo, Dean Ambrose would have been coming out on Monday Night Raw with a doctor's surgical mask, like it was, saying "Pooper Scooper," "Pooper Scooper" on live TV, just for Vince to laugh his ass off in the backstage. But that's just one of a few things, of course, that Dean Ambrose was just disgusted that he had to even, bust heads with Vince McMahon on, as this will be a very interesting top 10 stream. What is going on, guys? This is the Club of the Man 1993. If it was a couple days ago, well, probably Tuesday, I had no clue what I wanted to do this week for my top 10 special live stream of the week. I had a few suggestions given to me. But then, yesterday, this podcast was revealed. It was called The Emancipation of Jon Moxley on Talk Is Jericho, as Chris Jericho sat down to interview the newest member of All Elite Wrestling, who showed up at Double or Nothing last Saturday as a surprise after the main event, Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose. Basically, the CM Punk, speech from Dean Ambrose, basically. Well, now Jon Moxley. So I'm still trying to get used to that. He's Jon Moxley now. Dean Ambrose is done. This is Jon Moxley talking. Well, Jonathan Good. Mr. Jonathan David Good, which is the real life name for Jon Moxley. Basically sat down with Chris, and again, I love the beginning of this. He goes, well, Chris, let's talk. Basically, it's time. Like, it was time for Dean Ambrose to tell his side of the story. Well, again, Jon Moxley to tell his side of the story of what led to his departure in WWE. And the things he said, how he did show gratitude, but he did bury the company, saying a bunch of stuff that us fans and us successful YouTubers here on YouTube have been saying for how long? Vince's idea of creative sucks. And that's what Dean Ambrose emphasized. And I thought I really enjoyed this podcast. I've listened to it probably about 3 times already over the past day and a half and whatnot, because it's really good material. It's a lot more entertaining than I watched an episode of Raw anymore. I mean, it's only about an hour and a half, but still much more entertaining. I can sit there and I'm invested in this story. Like I don't get tired of hearing these stories that Dean Ambrose has to share. Well, okay, I'm sorry. Jon Moxley has to share. Jon Moxley. If I gotta get that right, how many more times? So, because of that, I want to definitely come here and talk about this podcast. And maybe for the heck of it, sometime soon, I'll do like a retro, little sit down and talk about the CM Punk podcast. Because those two are definitely 2 of my favorite podcasts. Well, actually, if I had to pick 3 of my favorite podcasts I like to listen to, it's this one, the one with CM Punk, Colt Cabana, and also I really like the Talk Is Jericho podcast with Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens. Like right after they started teaming up again in 2017. Like those 3 are 3 of my favorite podcasts. Like maybe I'll talk about like each of those podcasts sometime in the stream. But this one, of course, we're going to do tonight is The Emancipation of Jon Moxley. So we're going to talk. I have 10. We're not going to go from 10 to 1. We're going to go from 1 to 10 for this stream. And I'm going to talk about 10 talking points that I wanted to talk about that Moxley mentions in this podcast. Start off with like some some little details and some bigger details that gradually when I get towards the end. Kind of like telling the story in order of the podcast, but something's a little out of order because it's like some smaller details that kind of like are more important to hear before get to like the bigger scoop. That's where we're basically going to go with this route, with this top 10 talking points from the Emancipation of Jon Moxley on Talk Is Jericho. So I look forward to definitely hearing what you guys have to say in the live chat. There's no one in the live chat yet, but even afterwards, whatever you guys got to say about this this podcast for sure. And if you haven't seen it yet, it is available here on YouTube. I did leave the link in the description box down below. So if you haven't listened to it yet and you want to listen to it, feel free to click in the description box down below. So let's get rolling here and talk about this podcast with my 10 talking points from the Emancipation of Jon Moxley. The first thing, though, was something that I got to throw out there real quickly. I was actually really surprised he didn't mention anything about the Stone Cold podcast back in 2016. Like shortly after he became champion, he had that Stone Cold podcast. Like Stone Cold basically kind of like, exposed him, made something that, he's lazy and doesn't do and isn't, and has much more to offer on the plate than what he's given. Which part of the reason why is because, although Dean Ambrose was successful as a babyface, if booked right as a heel, Dean Ambrose could definitely been an even bigger star than he was, than he already was. Like, he was, a strong baby face for sure, but there was much, much more that they could open the door for Dean Ambrose to do if they would have booked him right as a heel, as the way, Jon Moxley would be, and not, the smelly, you all stink, all you promos and whatnot, which is, basically, one of the talking points we're going to talk about in a second here. But I'm very surprised, though, that Moxley didn't talk about that Stone Cold podcast at all in this interview. I mean, they the farthest he went back, again, he did talk about, a little bit in 2016. He gave a little pre-appetizer, which I'll briefly explain when we get to, which is actually our our third talking point I wanted to, mention. We get third talking point, but I'm very surprised he did. But as far as he went back was 2016 with a segment on SmackDown that he kind of uses like a pre-appetizer, just to show that for 6 years working with Vince McMahon, he was butting heads on the material that he was writing for him. Without getting too far ahead, so like, guys, I just want to throw it out there again. I was just surprised that he didn't mention the Stone Cold podcast at all, and how that kind of was a little bit of a down point in his career, I gotta say, because they haven't done a Stone Cold podcast like on the network like that since that one, which is unfortunate because those were always good. But that's the first talking point. The second talking point I wanted to mention that I didn't know this because I guess it was, a lot of people reported to reveal that I think the contract they were going to offer Ambrose was like a 5-year, like 7 figures lucrative like contract or something along those lines. Apparently, since he knew that he was done, because Ambrose, I guess Ambrose said, okay, Moxley said he was supposed to get his contract as early as Super Showdown, but then kept not getting it. And then finally he was told by Mark Carrano that Triple H wanted to hand to him personally the Monday after the Royal Rumble, which is there when Ambrose finally cracked and told Carrano that he's leaving. But he didn't tell Vince or Triple H yet. He didn't want to tell anyone else that he was for sure leaving, because especially since that weekend he knew Seth was going over in the Rumble. He didn't want to throw Seth off from his performance. So we have that there. The fact that Ambrose didn't even bother looking at the contract, which plays into effect. My number one talking point, the number one, Well, the last talking point was, which again was my technically number one thing I got out of this podcast, which really made me, become more of a fan of not just Jon Moxley or Dean Ambrose, the character, but the man himself, Jonathan Good, and who he is. And it really, it really moved me, I gotta say, because it was something very similar to how I live my lifestyle. But number two, the second talk point again was he never looked at the latest contract offer. But number three, the biggest reasons why Dean Ambrose hated the material he was writing for, he was given to work with. Again, the little pre-appetizer he called when he told a story how there was a promo he was on SmackDown in 2016. I'm trying to remember which one exactly this was, but basically he was given a script to basically talk about like what he did on his way to the arena that day. And he mentions, though, it's stuff that not like a cool person would do, not like a likable or relatable person would do, but stuff that an idiot would do. It's not ways to, make someone, likable, like someone that people would want to, get behind, because that was his job as a babyface, to get people to want to see him win and to see him succeed. As a heel, they want to see you get your ass kicked and whatnot, and whatnot. I mean, of course, be like someone to beat, but still to where it comes to the time to get the compass, get his ass kicked basically. And the thing is, Dean Ambrose's character, yes, it was meant to be a little like corny and wacky and whatnot as a babyface. As Steve described, I'm trying to remember it exactly. He describes like 10% Dusty Rhodes, 90%. Who is the name again? He described it as here 90%. Like as like several superstars say, they try to base their character off of inspiration from some other hero of theirs and whatnot. And Ambrose mentioned, though, the thing was, though, he didn't want to be booked to be an idiot, look like an idiot. Yes, goofy and crazy and basically he wanted some like a little bit of comedy, hardcore, basically, was what he was going for. But he didn't want to look like an idiot. And that's the biggest problem he had with his materials. They were making him look like an idiot, he felt. And of course, he says to McMahon, and he goes, no, that's you! That's you! That's exactly who you are. This is you. That's all he kept saying. It's good shit. How many times, again, in CM Punk's podcast, somebody kept track of how many times Punk dropped the F-bomb. It was like 303 times in the whole podcast. I swear, I think that for this podcast, it was how many times did Moxley say shit? Because it's good shit. It's good shit. That Vince McMahon kept saying how many times, in any of these stories that he was saying. But that's the whole gist of, what really frustrated Ambrose the most about his character, because, which actually kind of, be a nice transition into the fourth talking point from here. He himself, and a lot of us even say this too, but it did kind of feel like, he was probably going to be, the weakest link coming out of the Shield. He was the Shield's third member, because, of course, as we heard, apparently, Seth Rollins was the first, was rumored to be the actual guy coming out of the Shield, like the top guy. But that changed when I guess he refused to squash Kofi, and then of course they did give Roman Reigns, because Roman Reigns is a guy would do everything he's told to do, which can kind of be a bad thing, but being a good employee, just doing his job, but it can be a bad thing because you're letting Vince take advantage of you and be something that you really shouldn't be on live TV. Where Ambrose was the complete opposite. Again, Ambrose had really never been a babyface before when the Shield first split up. And he did feel, of course, that he was just going to be just the third member, that they had like no plans long term for him. Well, what happened in WWE? What happens when someone does? Well, what happens though is he made it work. He was a guy who said he was given crap sometimes, and he did what, and he felt he was the best guy though. If this is what Vince wants on a show, he said a line that he had said several times to Vince when going in to plead his case as to why he should be saying some of the stuff that Vince came to say. A line he said, which he told, there's a certain segment, which again when we get to one of my talking points, he shares that he always would say to him, if this is what you want on your show, I'm the best man for this job. Like if he was going out there to, eat a Cuban sandwich, he would make eating a Cuban sandwich look cool. Like, he would be like, make the best out of it he can. Of course, most of the time he was able to make it work. There was times, of course, like a certain segment, he wasn't able to make it work. That obviously was so bad, but Vince loved it because it was amazing. But it wasn't. And of course, we'll get to the actual line Vince was saying when telling Ambrose about it before he did the segment. But the thing was, again, was he got himself over. But of course, as always, as he basically implied here, if you get yourself over WWE, Vince is going to, try to get his hands into it big time to make it his thing. Because once again, Vince McMahon's ego is so full of himself. Again, to quote John Cena, get over your ego. And he had to touch it and make it his thing because Ambrose got himself over. And, that's where, he started, of course, getting frustrated with Vince because Vince was just, again, making him doing stuff that makes him look more like an idiot rather than, someone people can get behind and want to see succeed, basically. So, of course, that is the fourth talking point. I say since these next few are getting to the more juicy stuff, let's go check the live chat first. And we've got Robbie in the live chat. We're really glad that you do rants, because this is a channel that will never, ever end. Sponsored by Robbie One Kenobi. Thank you once again, Robbie. Of course, Amber sees a picture of Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Ho! And then Amber sees a photo of Stephanie McMahon. Ho! And of course, I'm trying to remember what else he said. I think he called Triple H irritable bowel syndrome. Seth Rollins was scumbag. Roman Reigns was brother. Kane, though, was toothpaste. Making the reference, of course, to his dentist character he had back in like the mid-90s or whatnot. The night on SmackDown, Ambrose dresses up as the Mountie was praised as an example of good comedy. Now, that was funny. The slamming of Rollins with 2014, his face afterwards was epic. I'm trying to put that face or that face he made that first segment we see him after he turned on Rollins, where he's like standing up on a ramp, like I'm trying to remember one of those face. Like when he's telling some of these stories of Vince, adding like oh, this is good shit. He's probably giving that same exact like, are you serious? Like, really, you kidding me? Whatnot. Jon Moxley's going to cause anarchy when he wrestles. Oh, yeah, for sure. He's definitely going to cause that for sure, Robbie. But thank you for stopping the live chat, Robbie. And, of course, you're a genius, Robbie. And that's why we like you. But anyways, since we're getting to the more juicy subjects, let's get into talking point number 5. Number 5 was how, he kind of mentioned it in the beginning, but then talked about more later in the podcast. When did he start to consider leaving WWE? So, again, Ambrose said Moxley said a very miserable time in his life was when he was out with the tricep injury. He had been working through it, though, for a good amount of time. Because I remember in the Chronicle on him from, right before he returned from injury to when he, like a month after he turned heel or something like that. He said that I guess he was trying to at least get through Survivor Series to have the match the Shield and New Day at Survivor Series, because that was when he was going to be going away for a week to Hawaii for his honeymoon. Well, I guess taking it easy for a week and whatnot didn't help. That's when he decided he had to get this taken care of. It should have been a 4-month injury because again he had put it off for so long. It was all mangled up. He had the staph infection, and he had to have another surgery because of that staph infection and whatnot. Apparently almost died from it also. But in July of 2018, when he was on his bike, he likes to put on concerts, wrestling to hype himself up because again he loves wrestling, which is kind of a little bit steep of what the final talking point is that he loves professional wrestling. He was watching old matches and stuff from other promotions, watching concerts and whatnot, seeing people do things that they created and they want to do. And of course, it's jogging with him having an artistic mind. He's like, okay, it's jogging my memories of my ideas. I do this, and this. But then he's like, wait a second, I can't do this in WWE. Oh, but I do this. No way, I can't do it in WWE. It's like it was one of those things where it's like he has all these ideas, but he's like, wow, why am why am I here? Why is he in some company that he's restricted and pretty much to only entertain just one man, the 74-year-old out of touch man who sits at his desk thinking poop and farts and stuff is funny. Okay, here's the thing. I laugh at that stuff sometimes too. My family laughs at that stuff sometimes too. But to have someone go out on live TV and do stuff like that, like it only works with certain characters. And Ambrose, especially as a heel, does not work. But Vince made it funny, made it in a way that it sounded like a bunch of 5-year-olds were talking on live TV, such as, the whole, piss jokes and whatnot in the catering segment with Drake Maverick last fall. That was so bad. But of course, this stuff was even bad. Of course, was probably worse for Ambrose. But basically, yeah, that's what started getting Jon in his mind because, he in February in 2018, because he was hoping, I think originally he was hoping to be back for WrestleMania, or at least a return at WrestleMania, and he wanted to come back as a heel. He pitched to Vince, he wanted to come back as a heel. However, though, the problem was they had already advertised Super Showdown, and that the Shield was going to be having a match at Super Showdown, which, of course, kind of said, hey, you can't return as a heel, which definitely, blew the wind out of him for sure. But Ambrose mentioned that, even though he was starting to consider leaving WWE in July of 2018, he said he didn't want to basically burn any bridges because, he didn't want to get involved in, legal, stuff and whatnot. But also because his wife works there. He didn't want to make things, be put in a bad position for her. And also, actually, when Ambrose wasn't going to be returned until later in the year anyways, he said he wanted to come back at SummerSlam and make an impact. Instead, though, they had him come back the week before and just show up. And again, of course, he didn't like how, Seth had to say stuff like, I fear I'll have a lunatic in mind. It's like, why say all of that when you just, overproduce it and just have him come out without, just giving it away before it comes out. Hey, the lunatic's about to come out in 5 seconds. Just that couple extra seconds will give the bigger pop. I mean, he got a big pop that night, but a bigger pop than he already will get, basically. Excuse me. But that is the 5th talking point of the day that of when he really started to think about leaving WWE. But of course, as he says, he's open to saying, maybe things will change. Maybe, his ideas will be taken and, he will be, the character that, he wants to be and not what the 74-year-old man wants to be entertained by. Because again, that's all the show is now. This Vince McMahon's playground, basically, because the show is for his entertainment. I'm sure he's sitting backstage laughing his ass off at stuff that no one else is laughing at, saying, this is such good shit. This is such good shit. We're all out there booing because, not because, we're booing them to get heel heat. We're booing them because we hate this. We hate what you're putting in front of us. And once again, not anyone else's fault, but Vince, because it's what he wants on his show. That's my number 5. Number 6 is the story of when he started counting down the days he had left in WWE, with how many days he had left on his contract. Because again, the plan was, again, his contract ended in April. And of course, as soon as, the clock struck midnight on May 1st, he was free, which he actually did have a time, like someone on Twitter, set a timer for him, to basically get, everything on his social media pages changed, which he didn't use social media, but he had it there, but he never used it. But to have everything changed over and have that Jon Moxley promo revealed as soon as his contract expired on which was on May 1st at midnight, when he was officially no longer a WWE superstar. The days he said, the day he said he first started counting down the days, looking at his phone, counting down the days, how many days he had left, when he was almost 100% sure he was done, was the Raw in Los Angeles. The night that like him and Seth Rollins were kind of playing, a little bit game of like cat and mouse. He said it was an exhausting day because he had like how many segments, and plus two, it was an earlier start since they're out in LA, so they're starting at 5. So they come in at like noon, I believe it is, to start, rehearsing things, or even like some stuff that was pre-taped, which he says most stuff should take like 30 seconds to tape, but if you're in WWE, it takes like 40 minutes because you gotta get that perfect lighting and whatnot. Which okay, a couple things, yeah, but 40 minutes for some of these brief little backstage segments, like really, come on. He's getting a bunch of crap that absolutely makes no sense. He can't understand what story they're telling. So it's like, yeah, he wanted to deal with stuff like that, including one thing that kind of involves, more than one occasion that I definitely left for a separate topic. I think it's like, actually, it's the second to last topic. I'll say that there. But yeah, Ambrose basically said, he had concerns about certain things in there. But the segment that concerned him the most was the last segment. He was out in the ring, and throughout the night, he starts talking about, smelly people and whatnot. Like, oh, what's that smell and whatnot? But that main event segment, I'm not even kidding you, which is why I played, of course, at the beginning of this stream. And, of course, Robbie has mentioned in the live chat. No joke. Ambrose will come and say something along the lines like, geez, it smells so bad here, I had to bring a pooper scooper out. I had to bring out a pooper scooper out. And he's like, no, that's hot garbage. That's pathetic. That's embarrassing. Like, that's, again, like he mentioned at some point, we're all adults. And look at the shit we're talking about, basically, on this show. Amen. As I've been saying all along, this isn't a damn kid show. So Ambrose said basically he didn't know who wrote the pooper scooper thing. I'm saying it's Vince, but I guess it may not have been Vince if he because again he had to basically give the new promo, the new suggested promo to Ed Koskey, the head writer of Raw at the time. And then he gives it to Vince. So I guess he wanted that to get there before Vince saw the pooper scooper line. Because he'd be laughing his ass off, pooper scooper, you gotta say the pooper scooper line. But so all day while Ambrose is just rushing around trying to get this figured out, he's worried about a pooper scooper line being seen by Vince McMahon. But before he even gets note that the pooper scooper line got taken out, he does get some notes saying somehow about Dean. But it basically said Dean needs to stop. I can't remember exactly what the word, but it basically said that like Dean needs to stop complaining and just do his promos basically. And it's just like what? It's just this is ridiculous. And there was one point I can't remember when Vince told him this, but he said something like that he has a creative license and whatnot, and doing things whatever he wants. He said something like that, and like Moxley said himself, what creative license? I'm literally doing everything that you're telling me to do. Like my input does not matter on any of this, basically, he was saying. But the thing also was the mistake though was also in the promo, Ambrose had to say something about I need to come out here with like a gas mask on my face or something. It's like he's trashing the fans again. He wanted to make it seem like he was just trashing the fans like not for their smells, but just other ways of like other aspects of like the characters of like of someone in LA, not this whole smell. Because I remember when I saw that smelling that stuff, like, oh, what's that smell stuff and whatnot. I thought it was more so, okay, maybe Ambrose is just coming out every single week and just like, having some, crazy, crazy little like thing that, he wants to, trash on or something like that. But then it seemed to have been based off his whole character, he hates smelly people and whatnot. It's just like, okay, this is getting a little ridiculous. This is not really him. So again, Ambrose says when Vince sees, a prop, like a gas mask or something in there, he jumps up and wants to immediately get that actual prop in there. And because that's another thing he hated, not just him being look like an idiot, not him basically doing things that only an idiot would do, but also doing a lot of prop comedy. Like, 'cause I also was surprised he didn't say anything about this, because the one segment, the first segment we see his new theme song with the lazy, sirens added to his theme. He comes out and he's talking while having the gas mask on, and then he just randomly ripped it off. Like, I'm not sure if that was his call or Vince's call to rip off the gas mask, because obviously, you couldn't quite hear him completely talking through that mask. Um, but basically, I guess, at first Vince wanted to come up with like, a surgeon's mask or something like that, like covering his mouth, like something people wore during the swine flu season or something like that. And then, of course, eventually he was going to have put the gas mask on and say, "Oh, I'm going to have to come with this week." Then, like basically, like the mask, his protection, he said, from this smelly fan is going to get bigger and bigger, which Ambrose again just despised doing. I guess after a compromise, they agreed instead to have like a handkerchief and whatnot. And of course, you do a handkerchief, like a clothespin on your nose. It's like, again, it's prop comedy that he just didn't like. But again, that was like, again, like that promo, and then something else that was, of course, said in that promo. Again, like that was the day he said he felt like he was starting, counting down to when his contract expires. He was like almost certain that he wanted to leave. Get to the next topic, though. Talking point number 7 was the worst Raw of 2018, which was the day he knew for sure he was done. Because even I forgot to mention too, the night he had to do all that stuff and come out at the end of the fight with Seth with the handkerchiefs, and what's that smell and whatnot, all that segment. Like, he literally just like stormed out of the arena that night without even talking to anyone. Just got to the hotel. And he's just like, God hates, like, even like this, or during another time when he wouldn't go in to talk to Vince about something, because he asked he stopped like Ed Koskey from going in one time and say, can I have him for a second? But he said, but first, can you give me about 30 seconds? He was leaning on something because he was getting just, mentally exhausted from just 6 years of just doing this left and right, of like telling, hey, this is stupid. Why I'm not saying this and whatnot. But the story of the day that he actually was 100% knew he was done. Like, he said he almost walked out, but once again, he didn't want to walk out because, again, he didn't want to do legal action. He didn't want to burn any bridges. He wanted to at least leave on decent terms. But he also, of course, especially just didn't want to make things awkward for his wife. But Monday Night Raw in Milwaukee, I believe this was the November 26th, 2018 edition of Monday Night Raw. He wakes up. Of course, it was an earlier start. He gets a text saying that hey, you're going to do some backstage segments. Then you get like these injections and you get these rabies shots. And he's like, no, like I'm not doing that at all. I hate that. He goes, I know you hate it. Well, his writer says, I know you hate that. Basically saying, no, I know, but nothing to do because Vince wants it to happen. So during, of course, this production, some little meeting they had to sit in on, all he kept doing was just looking at the script. It's like, this is just awful. Like this is one of those segments that he won't be able to recover from. Of course, like afterwards, he wants to go talk to Vince about this after this meeting, but immediately someone comes up and says, "Hey, Vince wants to talk to you about your segment." Because here, I guess apparently it was floating around that day that Ambrose doesn't like it, the segment he's doing tonight. But Vince wanted to talk to him because he wanted to make it clear to Ambrose that this is not comedy. And Ambrose is like, "Well, how is this not comedy? This is so prop comedy." He's like, "There's no props." He's like, then how is a big giant syringe being used by a doctor, played by an actor that he's hiring, not a prop? But all Vince kept doing, like Vince flat out said this, kept pointing to the paper with the promo and kept saying, "This is such good shit. It's well written. It's gives you a ton of heat." Like, Vince thought this was like the greatest. Like, it shows Vince thinks this stupid, cheap comedy heat is so hilarious that, like, he even flat out made it seem like he had, like, Moxley made it seem like that Vince had explained to him, and the audience don't know what rabies is. Basically, dogs get a temper, and and it gives them, and like, and he's just, and You can tell like Moxley gonna sit there just like really you and Vince, and if he's saying this is not comedy, Vince is laughing while he's explaining this segment to him. Like, how is this not comedy if you're laughing your ass off at it? The fact that some guy's getting a big syringe shoved up his ass on live TV, like this isn't Ambrose. Again, making him looking like an idiot. Getting rabies shots on live TV. But of course, as I said earlier, the line that Ambrose felt he had to say a lot, and he said when he was in his office that day talking about how this segment is not comedy. This is he said he said he knew saying this for the final time that if this is what you want in your show, I'm the guy for the job to make this the best thing ever. So of course he does it, and of course he knows while doing that, there's no way he's saving this segment. He knew it sucked. No, the audience didn't like it, whatnot. But everybody afterwards was telling him. Well, I think it was pre-taped. Everybody was telling him like, "Oh, Vince loved it. It was the best," and whatnot. He was like high five and whatnot, but he was like, "Yeah, no, like I hated that." He basically again just jumped out of there, went to the airport, and just sat down at the airport bar and had a beer, and that's the night Ambrose said he knew for sure he was done. He knew for sure he was not coming back. He was just basically waiting for, the new contract to be given to him. And that's when he was going to say, nope, not interested. I'm done. I'm writing out the rest of my contract and I'll be done. But yeah, Pooper Scooper, Vince saying the line of, this is such great writing. It's good shit. And it gets you a ton of heat. Sure as hell did not. But, I gotta sneeze here a second. Robbie says the Pooper Scooper story was just awful. Imagine how exhausted Ambrose was doing everything he can to get that line out of this promo. Oh, for sure. Like you said, the one day, he literally was either that day or the day he was going to talk to him about, the prop comedy stuff, or the rabies shot segment. Again, he literally had to ask before stepping in front of Koski, if he can have 30 seconds. He had to sit down and just catch himself, because he was just getting mentally exhausted from just constantly doing this all the time. But that was talking point number 7. Number 8, of course, again, as I said, Royal Rumble weekend was when it was revealed that he basically revealed that to certain authorities that he was not going to be coming back, even though his contract not been given to him yet. But once again, as I said before, he didn't even bother looking at it. But again, he didn't want to tell a lot of people, especially he didn't want like Seth to know, because Seth was going over in the Rumble. He didn't want to hurt his performance. Of course, it was very well known that Monday, and that Tuesday was when that big proclamation oh, we hope he comes back to WWE is out there. And as Ambrose said, they did that because once again they wanted to control the narrative. Like, he thought he was just going to get written off TV that night and just ride the last 3 months of his contract out, but nope, that was not the case. And of course, also, I think they even tried to get him to extend his contract for the European tour, but Ambrose was like, no, I'm not doing that. Well, he was thinking that, but he lied and said, I'm already booked for a film project, which is when he was working on that trailer that was first revealed as soon as his contract expired with WWE. But basically, he was told that they weren't going to try to bury him on the way out, which I don't think they completely buried him, but they still at times kind of like a joke. Like, I still personally think the last appearance Ambrose should have had was that Falls Count Anywhere match they had with him and Drew McIntyre. Just again, that ending with Ambrose basically, getting Claymored with his head in that railing. Like, that match was great. And it, again, as Ambrose said, whenever the Shield broke up for the first time, you want to go out on your highest note. And I feel like in recent memory, that was probably one of Ambrose's best matches, even though he lost, of course. But I felt like he went out on his highest note. Like, that was the best way I felt to write him off. Like, the way he appeared on the last Raw on the Raw after Mania. Again, I thought that was just stupid. Again, they should have done that. And of course, that whole Shield final chapter, which again was stupid. And Ambrose got paid pretty cheap for that match, also. But he didn't care. But he felt he was already lied to, because he's revealed production meetings, slowly get smaller and smaller and smaller. There's certain times here for a certain amount of time. Then it's a couple of times they're asked to leave until it gets down like the last hour before the show. It's like, the very secret meeting with like Triple H, Vince, Ed Koskey, the head writer of Raw at the time and whatnot, breaks it down. Like during that time, he was because at first he was told he was just going to lose to Rollins that night, and that was it. But then he was said there's been some additions. He was told about the angle with Nia. Now, as he said, Nia, who he thought did a good job in the men's Royal Rumble, he wouldn't mind taking a bump for her. But just the occasion, the fact that, of course, obviously someone already told Vince that Ambrose was leaving, even though he didn't really get to tell him yet himself that he was leaving. So Dean took this as, Moxley took this as that this is them doing a burial of him. And he stormed in during the production meeting, and Vince's like, "Oh, my office," and then it's like, first, they had like, your little talk and whatnot, and that's where, he basically said everything he wanted to do, but Vince is like, no, this is not a burial, it's an attraction. Huh? It's an attraction. Huh? Dean Ambrose and Nia Jax, an attraction. Dean Ambrose and Nia Jax is an attraction. Get real again. Showing that this man has lost his mind. He's senile. He's insane. He's not human. Out of touch and whatnot. They did the angle though, still, of course, didn't really was anything in the end. Of course, he also talked about, this is an honorable mention, he did also talk about how he feels like, what happened with him and EC3 kind of didn't work, because again, EC3, they tried to push as a babyface his first night out on Raw when it at a moment of bliss. And of course, who are you? What's an EC3? Where's EC1 and 2? Or he was saying all this stuff. Again, he was supposed to be the heel, he said. But then, again, because, that was the first week since they had known that, it was revealed to the public that Ambrose was not renewing his contract. People were expecting this was a work because of how they, did. Because once again, WWE wanted to control the narrative, he said. Because of that, they put him up against the guy that, the people obviously had, like, a lot of respect for still as a competitor, as a performer and whatnot. And because of that, it kind of turned EC3 heel, and EC3 this is probably the reason why EC3, has pretty much been buried ever since, because, he didn't do his job and was a babyface. But once again, hello, you basically, revealed this guy is not coming back. And, so obviously, people are already, it's hidden, and then, seeing this guy on live TV, oh, he's not going to be there. So you put like an upcoming talent against him and it ruined. And that's what ruined EC3, which is a shame that happened. But yeah, the Nia angle he thought was a burial, but Vince tried to blow smoke. Was that saying it's an attraction? Wow. But my number 9, something else that Ambrose hated doing a lot. He did it one time, and it was during the set of the promos, I believe, when he the night he was playing like cat and mouse with Seth Rollins or something. I can't remember exactly when it was, but he basically was told to say that line about Roman Reigns and leukemia, saying like, who cares or whatnot. He's like, I can't say that. Like that's my friend in real life. I can't say that. That's too far. Like he gave it and still said it. But even like I went back and watched the promo here. You can tell just on live TV, that whole segment, that whole backstage segment, Ambrose just felt uncomfortable. And he looked like he did not want to say it at all. Like his own friend being sick with leukemia, who cares? Well, no, but Roman's so involved in the storyline. You see, you turned on not just Seth, you also turned on Roman. Talking like he's a 5-year-old once again. He's like, yeah, I know that, but I don't need to be a live TV. And basically he's telling not caring that my friend is, sick with a life-threatening disease right out here. He also said there was, I think in the segment when he got the rabies shots, he was supposed to say something about Roman in that promo too or something like that, but it was worse. And he didn't tell us what it was that he was going to tell Jericho when they went off the air. But It was worse. Like that's when he put his foot down. He's like, okay, no, I'm not saying that. And that's when Vince was just like, oh, well, not comfortable, fine. And the other things too, I forgot to say this too when I got to, when he first talked to Vince about him not coming back. Vince McMahon, of course, tried to cover his ass, but he said that, he was innocent in this, saying that he did not know that Ambrose didn't like the rabies shot promo. You called the man in there to basically tell him it's not comedy. You obviously knew, talking about that they saying, oh, Dean, you don't like your segment and whatnot. Like people making a big fuss about it and whatnot. You had the balls to flat out say you had no clue he hated that segment. Get real. It's complete BS for sure with that. But yeah, that's another thing. Of course, that's not we're not talking about. Again, he couldn't stand having to say that stuff about Roman Reigns, and we knew he didn't want to. He didn't want to insult his friend who's sick with leukemia. But the final talking point I wanted to talk about with this top 10 special is what we learned throughout this whole podcast, and that's that Jonathan Good himself, the real life Jon Moxley, his real life name again is Jonathan Good. He's a pro wrestling fan. He's passionate about that. And as he said before, he didn't care what that contract said, how many zeros you had, on that contract, whether it was 6, 7, nothing was getting him to stay. As he said, if they offered him like a Brock Lesnar type deal, worth $10 million, he's got his truck paid off, he's got his house paid off, he's got his mother's house paid off. He doesn't need the money. He flat says, he loves pro wrestling and he wants to, be creative, be an artist, entertain the fans. He wants to put his heart and soul into this and do what makes him happy. He flat out said AEW had nothing to do with his departure. If AEW didn't even exist, he would still have WWE. He still would have went out and even tried to make his own promotion. Because obviously, AEW doesn't want to run WWE out of business. AEW just wants to be an alternative route to basically, and as he said, the people there who do want to prove that Vince's, way of creativity sucks. He doesn't want to be somewhere for the money. He wants to be somewhere where he's able to do what he loves to do. Because as he said when he first, when he was getting ready to come back back in July, when he knew he was getting closer to returning, he was excited to be coming back to wrestling, but he wasn't excited about coming back to WWE because he knew he could not be who he wanted to be. A guy like John Cena or Roman Reigns, all due respect to them, they're good people, but they're the type of people who do whatever Vince McMahon wants them to do. Dean Ambrose, on the other hand, he didn't. He wanted to do whatever made him happy. But even before he buried WWE, before he shared all these stories, the thing most that really stood me up about this is the fact that through all this, he was still grateful for the 8 years he had in WWE. He said he went in there, he was like a kid. He came out as an adult. He grew as a person. He grew artistically. It basically more so like, hey, it was a great run. I did my business here, but it's time to move on to something else. Because he had bigger and better. It's like moving on to bigger and better things. WWE basically turned to a stepping stone for him to finding, the bigger route he can go with going to AEW or even doing time in New Japan or on the Indies, where he can be the character he wants to portray himself as. The artistic idea is that, the thing is also, why would someone, me as a videographer in real life, yes, I'm pretty sure any company I do videos for, they have their expectations from stuff in the video. The clients do. But what people, of course, want to see, with media artists or, performers and whatnot, they want to see them put their input into their characters as well, into their projects as well, into their performances. They want to see, someone else, put the work, not just to sit around and just, basically have someone hold their hand and tell them what everything to do. Ambrose, wants to be an art. Wants to show he's an artist. He wants to show that he has creative ideas that are his own, and he wants to find his way having fun. He doesn't care about the money. He just wants to be able to enjoy what he loves, and not just do it though in a way that, and not go to say WWE where he's doing what he loves to do, but he's doing it to please someone else, and it's causing him to lose his passion with pro wrestling. Dean Ambrose didn't have to leave WWE. He could have finished up with WWE and retired. He had a good career there. But obviously, he knew there was more to him. And he knew that it was not going to be happening for him in WWE. So he left. And of course, the biggest thing, of course, which I was glad to hear this, because let me put this some in perspective. Him and Renee Young, they made the both so awkward on live TV. Because Renee wouldn't even speak while Ambrose was out there. Or, they wouldn't what was it now? Oh yeah, even the first few weeks after the heel turn happened, she had no clue what was going on with her husband, which kind of made us think why would you have her not know what's going on with your husband? Shouldn't you know? This is not him just being in a bad mood for a couple days. This is him in a whole new persona, basically. So I personally felt that they probably should have had him and Renee on separate brands, if this does not make it look that awkward. But Dean said, or Moxley said, if anything, he even told Renee, if this gets too weird, we can just pack up and just head out, because one of the best things for him for WWE is the fact that he met his wife through WWE, and that he wants her to enjoy her career, and he doesn't want one business to get in the way of their relationship. He will do it. He willing to put her first before himself. And it's all of that. Whether you want to put your wife before yourself, well, I'm single right now, or whether or how you prefer, doing things because you love to do it over the money. That's people, I appreciate, because that's the kind of guy I want to be. I mostly do weddings right now. That's what my bread and butter is in my career right now. When I meet with my clients, I don't physically tell them this, but I present myself in a way that comes across as, I want to be here and put the best work in, mixing my creativity with theirs, and know that I want to be there, and I'm not just showing up there just for the money. I enjoy what I do. I need to make money, but I show that me enjoying what I do is more important than just the money. That's the same thing that Ambrose came across as. Jonathan Good is a man who wants to do what he loves to do and be happy. And even when I saw him come out at Double or Nothing, or the way he's talking right now, you can tell he's much more happier. Think about now, you can tell how frustrated he looked in that WWE Chronicles special. And when he first announced he was leaving, until he was announced to leave, Dean Ambrose was someone I never thought would leave WWE. But now he has, and I've heard his story, I don't blame him. And I have all respect for him for the decision he made. And which is why, I want to watch AEW more. I definitely want to tune in more now, because I want to see what he wanted to bring out as his heel character that Vince McMahon didn't that was preventing him from doing. He's not going to be saying any pooper scooper lines. Of course, maybe he will just take shots at Vince or something, but he will do something. I'm sure in some way he's going to take some type of shot at WWE somehow in some of his material. But yeah, through all this, the man is still grateful for the person he became through his experience with WWE. But obviously, WWE it turned out to be more just a stepping stone for him than just, the rest of his life. Now he's literally doing what he's meant to do the rest of his life. Wrestle with AEW in New Japan on the indies. And, be the character he wants to be. He grew up in WWE. Now he's free, and he's going out there to doing whatever, he wants to do. And that's the message I got here. And guys, that'll be it for this special stream of the week. Again, it was a little bit different, but I had to talk about this podcast, The Emancipation of Jon Moxley, formerly known as Dean Ambrose. Again, if you guys have not listened to this podcast yet, there's a link to it on YouTube in the description box down below. Make sure to click that link and check it out. I tell you, it is worth the 90, 100 minutes, like the hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes that it is to definitely sit down and listen to the story of what led to Dean Ambrose leaving WWE, and of course what his plans for the future as Jon Moxley. So guys, Robbie, thank you for joining me in the live chat. As always, guys, we've really been saying, of course, also, I know we always point over that WWE needs Robbie. And personally, as long as Vince McMahon is on his 2 feet, he is not stepping down. So WWE does not deserve Robbie. AEW, NXT, New Japan, any other promotion deserves Robbie. So still always get hashtag please sign Robbie trending on Twitter. So guys, what are your thoughts on the Jon Moxley podcast on Talk Is Jericho? Leave thoughts down in the comment section below. What talking points did I miss that you guys would like to hear from me as well? Leave your thoughts down in the comment section below. That as always, guys, please slap a like on the video. Subscribe or comment on my channel and follow me on Twitter at DemandEverybody3. Again, this week I'm going to try to get my stomping grounds, or stupid grounds, as Robbie says. Going to get those collaborations done. Going to do NXT TakeOver Unstoppable next. I'm going to definitely get the next part of my Harry Potter Let's Play in as well. And yeah, again, just stay tuned for more to come to the channel. And with that, guys, I'm checking out. Thank you for joining me for this and also for my previous stream tonight, my TakeOver Rival review. So until next time you see me, guys, I will check it out. Have a great weekend, guys. Stay warm, stay dry, and I will see you guys all later. Peace out, everybody.